Hello and welcome to Gavra Racing Podcast. You are joined by Tucson0208, myself,
Me, Tiger Assassin.
And me, Ecstatic.
and welcome back to all our loyal listeners who are tuned in for a seventh week, which is quite crazy to think about. We've done this for over a month now, which is quite weird. But and also to all our new listeners who are just tuning in for the first time, this is will be in the playlist. If you want to go have a look at the rest of them, they will be on the YouTube channel. But anyway, we're going to get straight into Project Cars 2 this week. We had a lot of Project Cars 2 stuff, not more than we usually have. But we're going to kick things straight off with the Academy series. The Academy was at round 8 this week in Imola with the touring cars. In qualifying, just to give you a quick rundown. So Simaba took pole by less than a tenth of a second from Bruno, actually, which is very, very, very tight there at the top of the standings for the Academy Championship, with Matteo running out the top three there. And then in the race, off of the start, most of the drivers got off to a decent start. It was raining, so it was very slippery, very tough to drive around Imola in the wet. It was a tricky track normally, but in the wet it's even worse. As most drivers got off to a good start, and Macho didn't have that great of a start, but Matt was tagged around at the first chicane on the first lap, so that was unfortunate for him. It looked like he just got tagged by another driver, both trying to go for the same part of the track. And then later on during the first lap, Dole, Matt, and Deck Paint went three wide into turns 10 and 11, which was just crazy to see. Got three touring cars trying to go, three wide into the very tight chicane up there at turn 11 and 10. As coming down the hill, actually, there was more contact between Deck Paint and Motormouth. Motormouth outbroke himself and then went off the track. Tiger, did you think that move between those two was a bit too aggressive, too much wheel to wheel banging
No,
for
I
your
don't.
liking?
No, I don't think so. There wasn't too much in terms of like huge collides. It was just slight little touches. But yeah, as you said, there's quite a lot of those drivers. It was almost four wide at one point. At that section. So yeah, there wasn't much in terms of anything to really make a claim or anything in terms of like huge damage or a huge collision. It was just a lot of drivers going down into a corner, and obviously since there was quite a few of them in a big space, there was going to be a little bit of contact between them. But yeah, a few of them going wide as well. But no, nothing too serious there.
So yeah, thanks for the insight. As about 2.5 minutes later on, Motormouth was able to get down the inside of Dolly Gura and get through and up into, I believe it was sixth position, I think it was. And then we had Goalie like completely just going down the inside of another car at the penultimate corner, just going like completely off the track. We saw a lot of that in the most recent race of the Project Cars 2 Academy, and I think it just shows that they need to, well, the point of the academy is to, have these drivers prepped and ready for, their careers in Gavra and how they conduct themselves on and off the track. But Natty, can you just explain to listeners how important it is for the drivers in the academy to understand that?
So yeah, the academy is kind of like the place where new drivers can show off their skills and that they impress other people, like the other people, and prove themselves that they are worthy for this league, and hopefully push into the different leagues.
Nice way of putting it. They must prove they are worthy of a career
It's
at
like
Gavra.
it's like they've got like it's like Thor with a hammer. It's like they must. He shall who lift the tire should be able to race in Gavra. So it sounds like.
Nice. As later on in the race, I think it wasn't caught on camera, unfortunately, but Bruno did manage to get past Simaba for first place. After that, he didn't really look back after that overtake. Then, with about halfway through the race, he had Matt forcing his way past Goalie at the penultimate corner, but he bumped him off the track like completely and did not give back the position. So I think that personally, for me, he should have given back the position because he pushed Goalie off into the gravel, really, and just then continued. But what did you think about it, ex Natty?
So yeah, from my point of view, it was quite a late move on the inside, and then obviously there was the contact made. But I think when those types of things happen, it's always good if drivers would to show a little bit of sportsmanship, and if they do make an unfair advantage or an unfair overtake, then it's right for them to give the position back.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you had an opinion on it too, Tiger.
Yeah, no, I could agree with what he's saying about giving positions back and everything. If it was an unfair overtake, he did. There was a bit of a lunge um in there, but yeah, it hit the back of him a little bit. But it wasn't anything too serious. But yeah, if there's anything that happens like that and it's a bit of a big dive, then really should be given the positions back to drivers. So yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing that the shoes might need to take a look at is the crash that happened after that between those two drivers, as a goalie was well, he got destroyed, he got sent to the shadow realm really by Matt down at, I believe it's Tamburello corner, or it might be called the center chicane now, at the first corner anyway. Matt completely missed his braking zone and just, ran into goalie and just sent him, like, super GT style straight to the shadow realm. As yeah, goalie ran off the track into the gravel and Matt slowed down, but I think that was a penalty the game gave him more than him trying to give back the position to goalie, who was two positions behind him actually at that point. But yeah, I think that's something that the stewards need to have a look at, and yeah, it's kind of the thing that needs to be policed around here, because clean driving is good driving, but we'll get to that later on. As Motormouth went wide and moved up, and Matt moved up a position later on in that battle. Those three cars really separated by nothing for a lot of the race there. As Motormouth went down the inside of Tamburello, which was a really good, really great move to see there. And then he did get the move done, but then Matt came back at him around the outside into the chicane. It was an awesome move. It was just like late braking in the wet, nice as you like, right on the outside. He kind of redeemed himself from sending goalie to the shadow realm. As then later on in the race, Motormouth unfortunately did have another off and went into the gravel, chopping another position. But what we did see in that race is a lot of people having issues, in the wet conditions, especially on Project Cars 2. I think we mentioned it last week, with all the puddles that are created on Project Cars 2. You don't really get them in the more arcade style games of Gran Turismo and F1 2019, or 2020 is coming out soon, but get onto that later as well. But Xnati, can you just tell all of our listeners how difficult it is to drive in the wet in any racing game?
Yeah, the wet is well, it's really tricky. Sometimes drivers can struggle in the dry, but in the wets, there's the track's often really slippery, so drivers struggle for grip, and then it just makes overtaking that even more difficult. With you try to go for moves up the inside, but you easily look up the tires or miss the braking point. Go wide or even spin out and by losing traction or just getting onto the curbs. As like you say, there are, like in Project Cars 2, there are puddles on the track, and not all of the track is wet or dry, so there are like mixed like throughout the race you can see a dry line that, well, not a dry line, but like a line that forms where drivers have been driving on. So yeah, driving the wet can be really tricky, and from personal experiences in obviously like the F1 games, it is kind of really tricky to drive in the wet.
Yeah, thanks for the insight, Xnati. As later on in the race, I'm using that phrase a lot today, Dolly Gura did manage to go around the outside of the Motormouth at Tosa, which is that's quite a nice move actually. He managed to keep his line all the way around the outside. Obviously, the racing line does change a little bit in the wet, but it was still nice to see that move done. As Dolly Gura then did go off the track, allowing Motormouth to go through. However, then Motormouth went off at the penultimate corner again, just highlighting how difficult it is to drive in the wet. As Xnati was saying, that you hit the curb and you can go off a track really easily, or you brake and go through a puddle and you're just aquaplaning straight off the track. But anyway, Motormouth did go off the track and Oligura was able to get back through. Gura then goes wide again and Motormouth goes through once again with I think it was about 10 minutes ago, 12 minutes ago. And then Matt went off the track and deck paint cut the chicane. That was uh, both on the same lap there. I think Matt went off the track at the corner before the turns 10 and 11 chicane, so turns 8 and 9 around Imola, and then Matt went off the track at the final two corners. But despite all of that, all the carnage happening behind him, Bruno managed to win the race. Very well done to them, and I believe they're now closing the gap at the top of the championship standings. But we are going to go straight onto the Renault Megane series, which was at Ruapana Park this week. I hope I've said that right. I'm sure someone will
Someone will do
correct
chat.
me in the comments. Yeah, exactly. As in qualifying, Javier Ranz managed to go for a third pole in a row by just under 2/10 of a second, and it was an all Spanish top five. So if you have many Spanish fans in Gavra Racing, you guys should really be watching the Renault Megane series, because you guys are doing quite well there. As at the race start, Aguileta gets a better jump off the start, but he can't take it to Javier into turn one. There was a car off a track, which was Randalux. A lot of people seem to have a issue at turn one there, just slightly getting onto the grass. We've had similar things sort of happen on Gran Turismo Sport, with the off-track grip being, so much less than the on-track grip, obviously. But Tiger, can you explain how that might affect people's driving style?
Yeah, it just usually on the start line, you just want to be careful because Obviously, there's a lot of drivers going wheel to wheel into the first corner, so you don't want to get yourself into maybe a dirty part of the track or a less grippier part of a track. So you want to be braking a lot earlier and just be a lot more careful. Looking around your surroundings of the different drivers. Knowing the width of your car, and yeah, just keeping a constant awareness really on the first lap or two, because the cars are usually really quite bunched up at that point. But yeah, you want to just be careful. And yeah, going wide at the first corner can happen. You might miss your braking zone, too busy battling with someone else, maybe wheel to wheel, or someone might hit the back of you. But yeah, there's a lot of things that contribute to it. But you really want to be on top of your game at the start of a race. Be aware of everybody around you and your car yourself. And make sure you're taking the right lines.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that also the turn 1/2 construct, yeah, go construct. At Ruapana Park also means that if you get on the grass there, 'cause I think the corner's like slightly banked, so when you go on top, it just drags you out just into the off the track and into the wall really. But Randalux did manage to avoid any damage there. But in the early stages of the race, Javi was running away with it really. I'm calling him Javi because my Spanish friends call me Javi. With a few more minutes left on the clock, we had 4 cars close together. There was King Quinn, Cypher, Duke, and Randalux, who's coming back from that first lap incident. So those 4 cars are like quite, close together. They were close together, the entire race more or less, or definitely the first half of the race. Then Randalux made another mistake, allowing Duke Martin to go back through. The same 4 were all still very close again. Toby One Kenobi, love that name, fellow commentator.
Brilliant name. Brilliant name.
Toby, yeah, we've got so many Star Wars fans in this podcast. I mean, I'm not really as much as ex Natty or Tiger, but
No, excites more than me.
oh,
I'm what you
definitely.
call it. I'm what you call a fake Star Wars fan.
Tiger's just in it for the memes, really. But anyway, coming back to the point, Toby went off track but managed to come back on safely. But it was at the final corner. Linen, I'm going to say that Linen was off track at turn 2, similar to the lap 1 incident. Then just reading through my notes here, as Randalux hit Quinn, where there's no space really on the inside, but luckily there was no terminal damage there. I mean, Randalux did. You kind of looked for a gap that wasn't really there, but I think that was just a product of Quinn in front having to slow
Brazil
down for a lapped
2019.
car. It's sort of like Brazil 2019 a little bit. I mean, I hope there wasn't any pushing afterwards, luckily. So.
Yeah.
I mean, Duke Martin was off track on the grass, and that grass really claiming many a victim. I'm sure it's the scourge of many a race at Ruapana Park. Randalux also had further issues, making a mistake at the final corner. Randalux and Cypher then had quite a nice battle, with Randalux was able to get down the inside of Cypher. It was a nice move to see after I think a lot of drivers were being affected by the dirty air around Ruapana Park. It's a bit like a go-kart track really, because it's very tight, very twisty, and there's more or less no elevation change whatsoever. That Randalux would then spin at turn 2, just showing the kind of up and down race that they had. Randalux with a wonderful move around the outside there. I can't remember what car it was on, but it was quite a nice move to see around the outside. And then Randalux managed to make a move on his teammate towards the end of the race. He did actually get driver of the day, just showing, again, the up and down nature of his race, with Quinn with a few more minutes ago off track, allowing Cypher and Duke for, I believe, Quinn went off at the same turn 2 area where Randalux had his first incident on the first lap. So if you're getting bored of listening to my voice, there was a battle with Cypher as Cypher went defensive, but Duke broke later and was able to go around the. No, was able to defend the inside, so it was nice defending from them. As a battle for second between teammates at the end near the end of the race, it was being affected by traffic a lot really, because they were about 3 seconds apart. Then I think Jukebox, who was in the commentary box, he did an excellent job, by the way. Excellent. You see what I did there?
Excellent job, Jukebox, as always.
Yeah, as always, he's a top commentator. As he looked away from the battle for about 2 seconds, and then he came back, and the gap had gone from 3 seconds to less than a second. And so, well, what's happened here? But it was just the how the traffic ebbs and flows. As Javi made it 3 for 3 then, in a dominant display at Ruapana Park, and it wasn't the only dominant display that he had this week, because we're gonna go straight to Le Mans for the Ferrari Tongue Twister Championship, as we like to call it here. But that's the name. The Ferrari 333 SP Championship. So it's our good mate once again, Javier Ranz, who's on pole by 1.5 seconds from Alichamps and Faster rounding out the top three. And then there was a clean start with more or less no incidents. Javier started to run away with things. He's already 1.4 seconds by the time they got to the Mulsanne straight, and apart from that, we didn't really see him again. Did not see him again during that race, as ESR Chef made the move down the inside into the first chicane on the first lap. We had it was a lot of slipstreaming there. Obviously, the Mulsanne straight is now broken up by those two chicanes. Which is providing the majority of the overtaking opportunities, as well as the run down in towards Indianapolis corner. I mean, the 24-hour race is going on right now at time of recording. So, I mean, if you know all the corner names, correct me down in the description. Marco went down the inside of ESR Chef as well, and Faster with a wonderful double overtake into the second chicane, which is really nice to see. I think we had that track also from the GT Sport Championship. Many of the similar moves being made at the similar places, as Marco went off the track at Indianapolis, managed to come back on safely. Red 15 GRT, I think it is, then hit the back of Manic going into Indianapolis. So looks like there's just a little bit of a miscommunication there between the drivers. It's a really easy thing to do, to be honest. You just brake a little bit later from the car in front of you, then there's nowhere you can go. Sorry, as ID4 was in the barrier at the final chicane, just looked like he got a ton of oversteer, and the car just snapped on him. Not much he could really do about it. Red 15 then was off the. Oh no, sorry. Red 15 off at the end of the Mulsanne straight, which allowed Manic and Aguilera through. He went off into the gravel on the exit of that corner. I'm not too sure what its name is, and so someone will tell me. As Dr. Fiend managed to get around the outside of Red 15 on the run down to Indianapolis. The drivers seem to like Indianapolis corner front overtake. I don't really like it for that reason in GT Sport. I find it really hard to take that corner normally, really. As the cars were close together throughout, however, some people seem to be affected by the dirty air once again, especially through the Porsche curves. If you ran on board with another car, you could just hear how much they were, lifting off behind another car compared to the car in front. As Dr. Fiend then had a little spin at Indianapolis, as many drivers having issues with traction. Hiker then spun from the turns between 6 and 7. It was unclear if he hit the car in front, where I just saw the aftermath really because of the terrible camera angles that Project Cars 2 gives the commentators sometimes, and that we also suffer from in F1. So, game developers, if you're watching, which I know you're not, fix it.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah,
Horrible
I
camera
really
angle.
hate when that happens.
I really hate it. You've heard me on stream get angry before, and it doesn't give me a good camera angle, and there's a battle going on.
Yeah, well, there you go. If you want to see that, watch the Golden Crown series from the Bahrain Grand Prix. As many cars then went into the pits with about half a race to go, so they were able to get half race distance out of one tank of fuel and one set of tires, which was interesting to see. As Doctor, yeah, I've turned Irish now. I've joined the Woody and Thunder fan club. As Dr. Fiend has run into the back of Hiker as well down at the chicane. As Red 15 then disconnected, and Dr. Fiend went with him, like more or less straight after the pit stop window. Natty, you have many an experience with disconnections. Can you just tell the listeners for us how annoying they are and what you can do to stop them?
Yeah, disconnecting from a race is really frustrating when you put all the hours in practicing and then just for your Wi-Fi or your network just to go, and then you then disconnect from the race, and then sometimes you can join back, sometimes you can't join back. So yeah, a good way to fix your Wi-Fi, just double check that all your Wi-Fi settings are like, you test your internet connection speed, make sure that's okay, and then there's not much you can do sometimes when you disconnect other than just try and rejoin and then push through the time that you've lost.
Yeah, wise words there from a man of experience. I think your record is like what, 4 disconnections in one race or something like that? Yeah, it was
Four in one
4
race.
in the freshman league. It was like, well, it was my first commentating experience. Like every single time, it's like, oh, he's joined. Oh no, he's left. Oh, he's joined again. As moving on from that, then, so Marco was able to get down to the inside of ESR at the end of the Mulsanne straight. Mike then pitted for a second time, which is interesting to see. Maybe he couldn't get the car to the end of the race there with the fuel that he had left. Aguilades managed to get past ESR's chef at Indianapolis on the last lap, which was just such a tense battle there to see with it on the last lap, especially with so much at stake. But Javier Ranz with another dominant win this week in Project Cars 2. He's taken that part of the community by storm at the moment. Currently leading the championship in the Renault Megane. Well, I believe he was substituting for someone this week in the Ferrari Championship. I'll have to have a look at that though. As we're going to move away from Le Mans and we're going to go across the, well, not the pond, but we're going to go across the continent even to Fuji, where we had the Ginetta Evolution race. So for those of you who don't know how the Ginetta Evolution Championship works, there are 4 legs across the season, and after each leg the car basically gets an upgrade. So I think they started in the GT4 cars, they moved to GT3, and then there was another car in between there, I think, and now they're on LMP3 cars. And so this is the first race that we had with the LMP3 car at Fuji, and Lonnie was on pole by 0.042 seconds, so only 400ths of a second there, separating first and second.
Tight
Yeah,
gaps.
tight gaps indeed. And the top 6 were all in the same second, so just showing the competitiveness there of that grid. Then moving on to the race, so the championship leaders in 4th and 5th on the grid, actually the constructors championship leaders. And when the race started, obviously races start at some point. Well done. Just reflecting on my notes here, and it was it was a clean start up until we got to turn 1, as Boston, who was late on the brakes, went into second place Lonnie. There was luckily no terminal damage. It wasn't as a hectic start as we saw in the Ferrari 333 SP race, which was last week, but it was raining in that race. But there was no terminal damage caused, but then Boston lets the car who he hit go. I think it was Lonnie, I believe it was. And then there was a 3-car battle as he came towards the end of lap 1, with Boston Rowe being overtaken by David on the straight, just absolutely blasted past his teammate there. That was just pure slipstream. As Rubik was passed by Boston under braking into turn 1. It looked like Boston had lifted off to let his teammate go through, and maybe he did it a bit too much. But what are your thoughts, X-Natty?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a lift off, but maybe he was just, I'm not saying he wasn't confident, but maybe he was just wanting to keep his race clean. He didn't want to get into any incidents and just, let the car behind go through and then hopefully try and get him back in the next few corners.
Oh yeah, thanks for the insight. As Rubik was really loving passing cars at turn 1, he got past David and up into 3rd place. Was looking to chase down the leaders at that point in the race, putting the slipstream to good effect. David was able to get back past Rubik though, and then Boston made a massive error somewhere off camera and fell down to last place. I believe he then left the session, so whether or not he just disconnected or there was something else at play there, we don't know. Well, I don't know personally. Only he knows. If he wants to get in touch and tell us. I mean, and then Marco then lost the rear, allowing Lonnie to get through and into the lead, which was, I think, just about caught on camera there. So the commentary guys did a nice job. As Marco then let his teammate go though, so a bit of team orders happening there down into turn 1. But through slowing down so much, actually allowed David to catch back up a little bit there. There's massive drama later on as Marco, the leader, went off at turn 3, leading into I think they call it the Coca-Cola corner on stream, which I found quite funny. That he spun off.
Corner.
It is a cool corner, as he spun off a track and fell down to 5th position. Ciavetta then rear-ended Pete Bibb at the chicane, so that was probably not the finest moment for those two drivers. As David then in the pits with a problem, it looked like his left front even headlight had been taking quite a wallop there, where it was against the wall on another car, not too sure, but he came in and fell back down to 11th, which at that point in the race was last place. Pet Bib then spun out of turn 1, which is really unfortunate for him. It looks like he just lit up the rears and just couldn't do anything about it to save the car. And Akaragim spun at turn 1 as well. We seem to have a lot of drivers struggling with rear end downforce. So Tiger, can you explain to us just how important the right setup is on the car, especially for a long race like this one was?
Definitely, yeah. You want to have a good setup because depending on what is involved in the setup. You've got the suspension and you've got the different downforce on the car. Maybe how much the car is, accelerating out of the straights, and how much it is braking by as well. It's all contributes. And it all changes on different tracks. And I know, especially for me on GT Sport, it's we don't. I mean, we aren't allowed setups, are we, on there too, saying? But I know that I do struggle quite a bit with rear sort of gaining rear grip. So it's important to have a setup, especially in a game maybe like F1, for example. Setups are usually quite key, depending on what the track is. Setup can be quite key, and then if you're racing with another driver, it can sometimes be the difference between you either getting that overtake or losing a position.
Yeah, nice, especially the 2 hour endurance, the setup that you're happy with, and you know that you're happy with, is really important, because obviously you're going to be, sat in the car for 2 hours. So, as
Definitely.
moving on from that, later on in the race, we had Dalavan, who was first into the pits. Then, more or less exactly on the 1 hour mark. So once again, the driver was able to get about half race distance out of their fuel and tires. Lonnie, then, who was the leader at the time, went on to pit road, and the pit stops began as quite a manic pit stop window. As Mike then was off the track on the main straight, and then Marco was in the pits again shortly after that, and looked like it was a damage. Like he had the same problem as David. The front left light was off, and so it looked like that might have been possibly suspension damage or something like that was causing that. And then GJ and Bessa had a really nice battle. If you don't know, GJ also races in the Gran Turismo Sport League. But Bessa looked to the outside, but it was blocked by Bessa. And then in the slipstream, he pulled to the outside, but couldn't make the move stick into turn one. But a good attempt there, nevertheless. GJ then went wide, which allowed Bessa through into fifth. Danavan was forced to pit for a second time because he was really marginal on fuel towards the end. He realized that he couldn't get to the end of the race with the fuel he had left, so the GT3 Project Cars 2 champion forced to pit for a second time, and then towards the end of the race, Pet Bib spun off, but luckily was not out of the race. But a bit of a change now. Javier Ranz didn't manage to win this race because he wasn't in it. Lonnie won, and well done to him and to Dalavan, who I believe takes the championship lead before next time out in Le Mans. But anyway, that's going to bring our Project Cars 2 section to a close. We're going to go straight back across the pond to Spain and to Natty G, the lead commentator from the Gran Turismo Sport Championship.
So we had the last week was round 6 in the GT Sport League, where we were racing at the 4.6-kilometer track that is the Circuit de Barcelona in Spain. And similarly to last week, we're going to start in qualifying, and once again, Play Dutchy taking another pole position, his third one in a row, and took it by only 0.019 seconds in front of Jojo Power. So once again, very, very close between all of the drivers in quali. However, towards the end of the qualifying session, we did see a little incident between Woody and Hobster through turn 3. And I believe, Toussaint, you can give us your opinion on what happened there.
Yeah, it looked like that Woody was just kind of sort of in the way of Tobster's lap a little bit. I think he was apologising for it after the race, but I think in qualifying he was just trying to do his own thing best he could, but it didn't work out too well between him and Tobster, I don't think.
And the start of the race proved once again to provide lots of action, with 4 drivers all battling for second place, including Jojo Power, yourself, Toussaint, Duke and GJ, while in the background we saw Tiger Assassin making his way through the field after starting in 8th place. But unfortunately, Jojo did spin after riding the curbs on the entry into the final chicane, and that dropped him down all the way down to 8th place. So it was unfortunate for him to lose out on all those positions after a good qualifying session. But roughly halfway through the race, we saw many battles in the midfield with Oriole, Tiger and Jojo Power. And throughout the whole race, unfortunately, there was a little bit of commentator cursing as Duke was going wide. Duke went wide at turn 4, which cost him a lot of time in a few positions, and ultimately had an impact on his championship standings. But I'll get onto that in a minute. And Also, to Saint, you had a bit of a drift down at turn 10. Do you think you could explain just how you managed to catch that drift?
Mate, that was the biggest save I've ever done in any racing game ever. Like my brother was on the sofa next to me and I did it and he was like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "I honestly do not know." I just what happened was I clipped the grass on the entrance to that corner and then the rear just snapped on me, so I like just grabbed my reel and just counter steered into the slide and I just managed to keep it, luckily.
It was very impressive, and also another example of my commentator cursing while interviewing Tiger. You had a little bit of the spin on the exit of the penultimate corner. Would you like to talk us through it?
Yeah, similar circumstances. I was really having trouble on the exit of that chicane, and that time I took it a little bit wider than I should have, and I got my rear on top of that sausage curb, and yeah, then my back end just went. Managed to catch it though somehow. Again, once again, like Tu said, I had a big heart attack. Like it was the heart dropped like very very quickly, but I managed to catch it somehow. I managed to carry on, but I lost a lot of time to the cars behind, which is why that battle with Oriole and Jojo, they managed to catch up to me.
And once again, the last 10 minutes providing some great entertainment with two on-track battles, one between Toussaint and Tobster for second, and the other with Jojo battling hard with Tiger. But I'm going to go to Toussaint first and ask him how difficult was it to overtake the Honda? Or did the track have an impact on your chances of overtaking?
It was very difficult. I was stuck behind, the Honda for about 45 minutes. I'm telling you, like, if you gave me a piece of paper, I could draw the rear end of Tobster's car from memory. That's how long I spent behind it. Yeah, it was very, very tricky to overtake. I think every time came out of the last corner and I was, close enough to make an overtake, the dirty air that you get from the final corner, because it's nearly a flat out right-hander in Group 3 cars. So it just meant that I just couldn't get him down into turn one. Turn one also is like you can only really take one line through there in Group 3 cars. And so when I tried to go around the outside, tried to dive to the inside, it just wasn't working. I just got like really frustrated, and it was quite a frustrating experience. But yeah, it was well defended by Tom Stelz. So I don't expect him to just wave me through. Obviously, but it was nice
Mm.
to battle with him once again after we did it in the F1 game before.
It was a good, entertaining battle for us. And additionally, Tiger, you were battling with Jojo towards the race, which, however, unfortunately led into a turn one incident, which gave both of you damage. However, he decided to stay out with his damage, which ultimately allowed you to catch up after you made a pit stop to repair your damage. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'll take the blame for that one. It was me not keeping an eye on my controller charge as I went down into the first braking zone, and then suddenly it was the DualShock 4 has disconnected. So I had a bit of a panic stations then. I managed to plug it back in, and just as I did, got back into the menu, and yeah, he'd gone into the back of me because the way GT Sport does it is when your car is paused, you can for some reason decides to take the corners really, really slowly and go like and take a weird line into them. So he came into the back of me, but yeah, that was my fault, and I apologized to him. But yeah, put a bit of damage on both of us, and yeah, allowed for an even more of an interesting battle at the end when I got around him. So, but yeah, I apologize for that one. But yeah, it was completely my fault.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate incident, but once again, Play Duchy picking up another win. Just like he always does in pretty much everything he races in. So his third race, his third pole, and his third win in this league. And after that race, though, we have a new championship leader, as to Saint now leads the championship with
Yay.
127 points. However, it's only 1 point behind. 1 point behind him is Duke on 126. So it's
Ooh.
really close between those guys. And also Jojo Power, only 6 points behind Duke on 120 points. So really close at the top of the table for the top three, and also to just to finish off the GTS League, the GT Sport League section. Do you think you can keep this lead at the top of the table?
Well, I mean, Duke involved the mead earlier on today at time of recording, so yeah, I think I can keep it. I know on a serious level though, I mean, hopefully. I think if I'm allowed to get my tomahawk out, I might be able to keep the lead at the top of the table.
Waffle wagon a second. No tomahawks.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough. I think I need to actually win a race at some point this year. As I think Dutchy's had 3 wins from three. It's really frustrating because in Spain, I had the pace to match him. Definitely, I feel like I had that in the car, but I just couldn't get past Topster. So, oh, sorry. Yeah, unfortunately, that was yeah, a bit frustrating. But hopefully, I mean, I should be able to keep the lead. Hopefully. The answer to my question to that question is hopefully.
We'll have to wait and see. But that's the end of the GT Sports section, and now I'm going to hand over to Mr. Tiger Assassin for the F1 bit.
So yeah, this is my turn now. Is going into a pretty well, it's not lengthy F1 section, but yeah, we've got it's going to be a little bit different this week after the circumstances that happened with the Golden Crown. So starting off, we're going to start off with the Weekend League. There was a lot of action during that race as we were in Australia, and Xnati, you had an outstanding performance. Getting second, you actually qualified fourth, I believe it was, and finished in second in the first race. And then you actually won the second race. So would you like to explain how you did such a great performance?
Well, I'll start off in the first race, and it was just try to get into that second place as quick as possible, because I know because Australia's a pretty difficult track to overtake on, so I thought if I could just get into the position, then I can always try and defend. But it was really, really fun race, especially with like all the virtual safety cars and all that, changing up the strategy. But yeah, the first race, a good second place. I thought I had pace, and it proved worthy with the second place. And then in the second race, I was able to put myself on pole position after the one-shot quali. I think the one-shot quali definitely changed things as a few drivers.
Big spanner in the works.
Yeah, I noticed a few drivers. Didn't get a decent lap in, and yeah, I was just able to defend the lead after an early safety car changed up the strategy for a lot of people. So yeah, I think it just a mix of strategy and defending was, and also not picking up any penalties was a good start to keep that position.
Before we just go on, I think Natty forgot to mention that he paid off Gavra. So for those of you who don't know, we were in a party after the race, and Natty joined and said that I paid €5 to win.
I did.
Was definitely not his not his finest moment.
I didn't mean it like that. Okay.
There for you. But yeah, so for that league, the admin team and Gavra do ask for a little donation just to support the work that they all do to make sure we can go racing. But I'm going to hand back to Tiger now for the slightly more serious section.
Thank you. But yeah, carrying on with the Weekend League, there was actually rain at the end of the first qualifying, where there was a few drivers that didn't actually get out on the first start of the qualifying and came out later, didn't manage to put in a good enough lap due to the rain. Eskiboy and Bakwazboy were the two of those drivers that were hindered by that rain and quali, and it didn't help their first race out at all. Absolute 11, who won the pre-season race in Italy, had a bit of an incident on the first lap where he hit the curb on the outside of the very fast chicane section, but he was showing it was disappointing for the driver because he was showing a lot of pace. And Toussaint, how unlucky was he to crash out spinning out on that high speed section on that curb there?
When you asked that question earlier on today before we started the recording, I actually went back and looked at the Premier Series race from Australia, and it was a lot of people actually made exactly the same mistake that Absolute did. So it just shows that it's a really easy thing to do. That curve on the exit there is really unforgiving. So he was really unlucky. Like Absolute was really unlucky there to crash out with that. But it just goes to show how small the margins of error are in F1 and the F1 game as well.
Yeah, definitely. Is the second race caused even more action as there was a one shot. There was only a one shot quali, as we said, and Jutsi, who actually finished first in the first race, so well done to him, actually qualified last in for the second race. So that one-shot quality really not helping him out. But there was another crazy start to the second race, as there was after the first race, as the start actually brought out the safety cars. There was a collision on the turns 1 and 2, and there was 2 cars that went wheel to wheel at turn 3. And and after the restart, Grossoto, is it Grossoto? I believe it is. That's how you say his name. Went wide at turn 2, battling with yourself, X90, and he actually ran a little bit wide on the exit and hit the grass, losing the car, and went sliding across the track into Absolute 11 once again. So Absolute 11 had a bit of an unlucky races there, X90, but you were involved in quite a lot of the action. You saw what happened behind. Could you give us a little bit of an insight for what happened on track there?
From my point of view, I went for the move around the outside of the Ferrari in turn 1, and then noticed he went a little bit wide on the exit of turn 2. And then as I've looked behind, I think he's probably clipped the curb or the grass and got on the traction on the accelerator maybe a little bit too early, and then that's caused him to spin and unfortunately collected a few people. But yeah, it was not quite a big crash, but there were obviously a few people getting collected with the cars spinning out and hitting the barriers.
Definitely, and it was provided some very, very good racing though across the 2 races there in Australia for the weekend league. And now we're going to go on to a little bit of a touchy section, but going to talk about the Golden Crown, and this is where we're going to do things a little bit differently, because we're going to talk about how drivers should be racing within Gavra racing. So firstly, we're going to talk about how to act under the safety car. So this is how drivers should be moving around, should be keeping their distance between the drivers under the safety car. And we've seen on numerous occasions people have been hitting each other under the safety car, where drivers have been coming too close or have been going too slow. This could have been unintentionally, as always. I'm sure the drivers weren't intentionally meaning to do it. But could you tell us a little bit on how we should be acting under the safety car conditions?
Yeah, I don't think the problem is necessarily with when the safety car's actually on the track. I think the problem is more with the safety car restarts. I think that I'm also kind of guilty of this as well. I'm not saying I'm some kind of angel here, but like when the safety car does go into the pits and the game does put the limiter on your car, I think the leader needs to be going a little bit faster than what they do, because when I've been in the midfield, it really, really like messes up the pack when the leader's going really slowly to try and catch out the person in second place. But under the safety car, I think with all like the lag issues and the issues that Codemasters have with their servers, I think I've seen Dutchy play Dutchy suggest this as well. I think if everyone just sticks to a different side of the track while that happens, just so that we don't get any unintended crashes under the safety car and stuff like that. But I think also when the safety car's coming in, I think the leader needs to go a little bit faster so that we can avoid all of these different crashes that keep happening under the safety car. Also, a track like Baku, where we were for the Golden Crown series, I think when we went back to racing, obviously the safety car comes on that massive straight, but it meant that people were overtaking other people under the safety car, and they have to come to a stop more or less to let that other car go through. So if you just try and avoid that as well, especially on tracks like Baku, I think you should see some big differences in the racing.
Definitely, and there's just some small things there that the drivers need to be working on. But another thing that we're going to talk about here is driving etiquette and clean racing. So this is when we are obviously back up to racing speed, and keeping distance and giving drivers enough room if they attempt an overtake is an example of this. Having clean racing and fair racing keeps the races exciting, enjoyable, and fun for everyone. And we all know that we all want an enjoyable and fun race. And X90, could you delve a little bit further into the different forms of driving etiquette and how this should be done within Gavra racing, please?
So I'm just going to start quickly with defending and like how drivers should be defending safely on track. Now, obviously, you are allowed to move over to like the inside or the left or the right hand side to defend the inside line into a corner. However, they're like, if you've already moved over to one side of the track, you shouldn't be moving back over to the other side because you might have another driver side by side with you. So as long as we can have clean defending, then I think it could make for better racing, and obviously that will lead me on to my next point about overtaking and how overtaking should be clean. If another driver is side by side with you through a corner, then obviously you should always give them enough space and make sure you don't either squeeze them out. You can squeeze them out a little bit, but as long as it's obviously if you're ahead and it's not too violent or too aggressive, then I guess you can get away with it a little bit. But yeah, as long as we have clean overtaking and minimal contact, then that should hopefully provide for clean racing. And also, when overtaking or defending doesn't go too well, I think some drivers just have to admit to themselves that if they do have a bit of front wing damage, that their car is going to be underperformance, and they'll start to understeer into corners and must accept that they can't always defend the position forever. If there's someone behind them who's quicker, it could be best to just let them go rather than try and go side by side through a corner if you have damage or etc. So yeah, I think most of the racing is really clean and within Gavra racing. I've had many good battles with people, but I think as long as we can just keep all the overtaking and defending clean, then hopefully it should make for some fun and exciting races.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and yeah. Oh, go on, Toussaint.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I just add to what Natty was saying. I think that if we uh, there's like sometimes contacts part of racing. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I think it's those little contacts that are avoidable, which kind of brought out a lot of the bad in everyone in that race. It wasn't the best look for the league and stuff like that, but I'm sure it's just a blip, guys. Like we're gonna come back. We'll come back from it. We'll come back next week in Silverstone. I'm sure we'll be able to put on a really good show for the fans and everyone that we have watching the stream, because the Golden Crown Series just had like a massive audience for the first two races, bigger than we usually get on any F1 stream. And yeah, so if we can just just try and just give a good show for them. We've got multiple different fan clubs. We've got the Holland Campion fan club appearing in there as well. So I think also we just try and just keep that in mind when we're racing. But I think the Tiger's going to talk about the penalties now for the next race.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add a little bit to that, as yeah, we have a lot of clean racing, Gavra, and I've seen a lot of amazing races this year. Definitely a lot in the freshman league, as I commentate, as you well know as well. Toussaint, we had a brilliant race out in Bahrain, didn't we? And
Yeah.
and you were saying Brazil as well. So some brilliant races have been going on throughout the league, and it's what we want to see here in Gavra Racing. But yeah, we will come back bigger, better, and stronger for next week. But just to end on that Golden Crown section a little bit here, so there are a few penalties that have been given out to teams. So the Super League has been given an LLP2, so the Super League will not be able to come out and qualify until 10 minutes left. And the Academy has been given an LLP3, which was added to the LLP2 that they had last week, because they had an LLP3 last week. Then that was dropped to an LLP2, which adds up. So now it's an LLP5. So they will not be able to qualify. So they will have to start from the back of the grid during the race. But however, there are some good points to take from that race. It's yourself, Toussaint, you came from 19th to 1st in that first 50% feature race. So well done to you. That was a brilliant, brilliant performance. I was stunned, quite frankly. I was stunned in two ways. I was stunned at the quality of racing, but I was also stunned at the fact of how well you did in that first race. And yeah, the Super League extended their lead to the Premier Series by 26 points. So I'm sure you two won't be very happy with that, and you'll try to come back bigger and better and stronger for next week. But yeah, that is everything from me. So make sure you guys listen to what we have said and make sure you apply it for next week. And yeah, it should be a much better event next week for everyone involved. But I'm going to hand back over to Toussaint, where we've got a bit of an interview happening with a driver.
Yeah, thank you very much to Tiger and Xnat. You guys do an excellent job, and it's always a pleasure to have you on here. As we are now going to move into driver interviews. Today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Joexx himself. If I can get him in the call, if I can do the right thing. As Joe, you there? Should be there.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad.
All right, so we're gonna kick things off straight away then. So, how are you finding things here at Gavra, considering that you are a relatively new addition?
To be fair, I'm really enjoying it. Like, too much. I'm enjoying it. Like, genuinely, like, most days now I'll be. It sounds sad, but especially because we're in quarantine, most days now I'll just be on F1. And the main reason for that is to be, like, practicing and just getting better for that league. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it, the whole, like, league racing thing. And Gavra, like, racing especially because it's so, like, professional and organized and things like that. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and we have awesome things like the podcast as well, so that's always good to hear.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not just one thing. It's just it's such a cool community, and the people are dope as well. Everyone's really cool. So
All right, I'm gonna give it to you now, Tiger. The next one.
So for our listeners who don't know much about you, could you give everyone a little bit of information about yourself?
yeah, sure. I mean, quite a simple guy to be honest. I mean, just love my cars. Literally obsessed with my cars, which kind of makes sense. I used to do karting when I was younger. It's kind of fitting because of the whole racing thing. But yeah, when I was younger, I used to compete quite highly in karting. I used to go around the UK regularly. But I got to the point, which most people in that space will know, when you get to a certain level, finance is key. And if you don't have that and you're not in the right place at the right time, and you don't know the right people, it can set you back from £5,000 a weekend. So it's just it got to that point. So yeah, I used to do that, but now I'm not really in that space. I'm just about to start college, things like that. I mean, I do training. I go to the gym quite often. Obviously, when we're not in quarantine, I quite enjoy that. Football as well. I enjoy kicking about with my friends, especially with you, Tiger, now and again. Yeah, that's pretty much the rundown.
Oh yeah, there's a Joe's Love Island audition right there. I think X Natty, you have the next one then.
So this year you raced in the freshman series, and what was your personal highlight of the season?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't, to be fair, well, the highlights, I mean, what stand out in my mind was the battle with Pepelec in the USA with my teammate, which was quite dangerous. I know that you two said it was quite loud. You were quite vocal during that, a bit worried about the two teammates getting that close. But yeah, that was fun. And then Belgium as well, up in the podium positions with Tim. That was, although the highlight ended quite badly for me, which I'm sure you'll touch on later with the questions. I enjoyed that. But the number one will be a qualifying session actually in Dubai in UAE, where I qualified second, which is I think I was 0.02 of a second off the champion. Funny enough, so I got to, although quite a bad season, I got to show my pace towards the end of the season. So it would probably be a highlight, that qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely that battle between you and Pepelec in the USA had me on the edge of my seat a little bit. I'm sure you heard it on commentary as well. But in the freshman league, you seem to be struggling a little bit with the traction and rear downforce of the car, which caused quite a few spins.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, to be fair, well, normally because I used to just race F1 casually, obviously traction was on full. So when I joined the league and it was medium traction, it was quite a bit of a shift to my driving style. And obviously, when you've got full traction, you can drive quite aggressively, especially with like overtakes on exits of corners, especially. So yeah, that was my issue. I was just getting used to the assist restrictions in the league. But yeah, that was my issue.
Yeah, okay. We've also done some stuff with setups as well. We are allowed setups in the F1 Championship, which is nice to nice to know, nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's another room for improvement for me is understanding the setups in the game, like what each individual thing does. I mean, I've got quite a broad knowledge on it, but not the specifics. So
As I'm gonna pass the baton on to Tiger now.
See, you and your teammate Pepelek, as you said, have been done something as the qualifying king. Pepelek has. Has he been able to give you any tips with qualifying? And do you tend to maybe stay as teammates next season?
Well, no, to be fair, me and Peplik haven't really spoken much, which is quite disappointing actually, because I'm sure he's a pretty cool guy. I mean, I asked for him to do some replacement for me the other day, which he was more than up for. So it would be good to get some more communication, especially if he's going to be my teammate next season. But yeah, I mean, in qualifying, he's very fast, so I would like to get some pointers off him. But yeah, I would love to be teammates with him next season if he's down, I guess.
I don't think he speaks a lot of English, so
yeah, exactly. Okay, so he can teach me how to qualify, and I'll teach him English. So
Like a good trade.
yeah.
I think Xnati.
Yeah, in the final standings of the Freshman League, you finished in 12th place. What are you hoping for, a stronger season, or are you happy with your performance this year?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, I was wanting a bit stronger, a bit of a stronger finish. I mean, to be fair, when I joined Gavra in the Academy League, I mean, my debut race, I qualified pole, so I was very happy with that. But yeah, so I got all that confidence up in the academy, moved up to the freshman, and if people have been watching all the freshman races, which you should have been because they were all freaking amazing, yeah, I mean, it wasn't my season. I just kept spinning because of the traction issues and the lack of understanding on the setups. But next season, all right, there's going to be a change, so we'll see. We'll see.
A new Joe for next season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tiger has been caused many a heartbreak up in the commentary box because of your spinning plays. So something might have to change.
Joe, you could do a bit of a Valtteri Bottas. Do you know he went away to that place somewhere and he did a load of stuff and then he did a bunch of workout and everything. I don't know if you remember before he started the new season, he did
something needs to change.
Everything.
Let's just put it that way.
Do like a Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, it goes to Northeast England equivalent of Lapland and and be on pole in Australia as a thing. I know it's me for the next one now. I'm back. As a follow up from that, I mean, we kind of touched on it already, but what can you do specifically in the off season to improve and be better next year?
Well, there's literally just one word that I think of when people ask me that question, and it's just consistency. Because I mean, that's my flaw. I don't think pace is the issue in that league. I mean, when I have been on the track, I have tended to be in the top 5, and battling quite heavily in the top 5. So yeah, it's just I just need to be consistent and maybe less aggressive driving style. I know I obviously had an incident with a Toro Rosso driver in USA just from a stupid mistake. So that needs to come down a notch, and then yeah.
Okay. Nice to know that. So here you go. One word: consistency. Man,
yeah.
Little words, Joe. I'm gonna give it to you now, Tiger, for the next one.
Do you have any plans to either continue in the freshman league or next year, or you potentially move up to the Premier, even Super League in Gavra racing?
To be honest, I'm not.
Mate.
To be fair, I'm not too sure. I mean, the freshman, I really like racing in the freshman league. I think the freshman league, not to be horrible, but I think it's the best viewers league. When I watch those races, it's not even because I'm in them. They're just so entertaining and they're so fun to race in. So yeah, I will definitely remain in the freshman for next season. But if there is an opening in the league above, I would definitely be interested in giving it a go. Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like we got a lot of drivers in the freshman who are either staying there or moving to the Premier. I don't think you have anyone moving from the freshman straight to the Super League, which I'm a little bit disappointed about because if we get those freshmen
Get Pepelek in there.
Yeah, get Pepperleck in. It would be a bit insane if we could have that. Anyway, I'm going to give it to Natty now for the final question, if he's still here.
Yeah, so you substituted for Toussaint in the Austria for the GT Sport League. How did you find your experience on the game, and is there a possibility of you joining this championship for a full-time entry either this season or next?
To be fair, I don't know. I think GT Sport isn't really my favorite like racing like sim, to be honest, or game, whatever you want to call it, because I just find it quite tedious as a game. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I'm used to F1, but yeah, I mean, but the race itself, when I wouldn't mind doing replacements and substituting drivers, but to full time do a GT Sport League, it wouldn't really be. I wouldn't really be up for it. But that race in Austria, I really did actually enjoy, with battling with Tiger himself. That was very fun. But
It's
I don't think the
Simmerbear
finish
came in
was
at
too
the end.
strong. I don't believe, if you can remember the finish, I don't think it was too strong.
I think he finished
Fifth.
fourth or fifth. Fifth.
I think there might
Fifth
have been
place,
an
I
issue.
believe. I think it was fifth because collided with me, which gave you a penalty, and then that's why it's Simmerbear, because Simmerbear came in at the end, if you remember, and then he got in front of you, and then I got in front of you at the end as well, so he came in fifth, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Gotcha there. Thanks very much, Joe, for coming on the podcast and
No problem.
answering our questions. That's going on the bloopers.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, if you would like to be involved in the podcast in the same way that Joe just was, you can let us know in the Discord, on the Gavra Racing Instagram or Twitter. You can personal message me, Natty, or Tiger on Discord as well if you'd like to be involved. And thank you, Joe, for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and we will see you, I'm sure soon. We'll see you later. Goodbye. Right then, and so it's been gone for the last few weeks, but making its muchly anticipated return, it is the Q&A section.
Q&A.
Thank you to everyone who sent in your questions this week. It was really nice to see, for a change, that we had so many people, sending in questions at the last minute there. But we're going to start things right off with a question from. I believe it is, if I go into the right chat, it's from AB Techers, who asks, what drivers or league do you think will surprise everyone the most in the Golden Crown series? So I'm going to give this one to Tiger to start off with, and we'll go around.
Well, I mean, it depends on how long ago did he ask that? Oh, we asked that question quite a while ago. So I'm assuming, Tech, as you asked that question before the Golden Crown. But it's interesting. I was hoping that the Academy would come in and surprise everyone at the start, because I feel like it would have given everyone a much better reputation and a much better look on the Academy League, and it would have shown what the Academy drivers can do, and hopefully they can redeem themselves, and for the final two races they can really surprise everyone. But yeah, for me it probably would have been at the start. I would have hoped for the Academy or maybe freshman leagues try and outdo the other two top leagues.
And Xnati?
Well, obviously we're 2 races in to the league at the time of answering this question, so I mean, it'd be interesting to see, because obviously you'd think the expectation would be Super League come out on top. So I think anyone who beats an expectation is going to be, rewarded for it. So I think I want to say that if the freshman can jump the Premier, or the Premier can jump the Super League, then I think that's that's what I think would be a surprise result.
Well, I'm going to be loyal to my league here and say the Premier Series. Hopefully we can take the fight to the Super League. If you don't have snakes like Natty, he'd rather see the freshman win. Unbelievable. Yeah, I think hopefully we can take the fight to the Super League, but I think anything other than the Super League winning would be interesting and quite embarrassing for them. But in terms of a driver, somebody who I've been really impressed with so far has actually been Antilopen. He's really come on a turn of form recently and been and been really good. He's surprised me in the Monaco race as well. He was like really on the pace with the rest of the rest of us really, and it was good to see that. Nice to see that. And Pierre asks, which league ex Natty G are you gonna race in? Because you've been in more than one league this season, which is a little bit against the rules, but you participated in the Super Premier and Freshman leagues this season. The only one you haven't gone in is the academy, and that's because you've been here for 2 years. So now you have to make a
Natty,
choice.
what
Which
have
one
you
are you
done?
going in for next season, Natty?
So yeah, next season I'm thinking of staying in the Premier for another season, try and get a few good results on them, and then hopefully move up to the Super League in future seasons.
As our most recent interviewee asks Natty, what is your morning routine? Playing F1 2019.
Well, it changes. It depends what you call the morning, because obviously after 12 o'clock is technically the morning, so it could be on. It's either GTA, F1, subbing online, and then it depends when I wake up. But normally after I do wake up, it would be it's either a shower in the morning, depends if I choose to have one in the morning or in the evening, breakfast and all that. So you're pretty average morning routine, really.
All right, and so there you have it, Joe. Hope you're happy with the answer that Natty just gave. As Woody asks, what are your best moments from Gavra racing? So I think how we'll do this is we'll do a race that we've all commentated on and a race that we've all been in. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. So Ty, do you want to go first?
Tough. The best race that I've been in, well, I mean probably the best race that I've been in was probably Austria GT Sport, finishing on the podium after that intense battle. That's probably my favourite and best moment so far in terms of racing in Gavra. In terms of commentating, just one of the freshmen, just all of Gavra. I really enjoy just Gavra racing. And when I first joined, it was it was quite an exciting but also a really nervous moment commentating on that first Academy League race, and then I must have made a big impact because Gavra said, "Do you want to do the freshman?" And then he asked me to come and do a bunch of other stuff for him. So clearly, I've made quite a big impact. But yeah, I think joining Gavra Racing probably was a very it is probably the very best moment for me. But yeah, the Bahrain freshman race as well was a very, very good one as well. So any of those.
Tiger there giving the diplomatic answer. I think I'll go next for this one. I think probably my best moment in Gavra that it wasn't actually caught on camera or on stream, which I'm very disappointed about. It was in Hungary in the Super League race. I was deputizing for Play Duchy, managed to stick it on pole somehow, and then I was there was some weird stuff with the safety car, which meant that I'd lost the lead and I was in third place. I was trying to chase down ESSH in second, and I had fresher tires, and like all the time I could see the gap coming down. It was like 2 laps left to go or something, and I managed to. Oh, it was such a nice move because he went to the inside to block into turn one at Hungary. But if you don't know at Hungary where the pit lane comes out, the track widens. So I was able to just duck into the slipstream, stay behind him. When the pit lane came out, I ducked to the inside and was able to just dive down the inside and up into second place, which secured a 1-2 for Toro Rosso in Hungary, which is quite nice to see. Me and Pierre are both doing well there for Toro Rosso, although hopefully I won't be deputizing, I'll be racing him next year. But yeah, that's probably my best moment. The best race I've ever commentated on, I'd have to say Brazil for the freshman league. That's one of my favorite races, just of all time,
Yeah,
if
it was a very
anything, just like constant battles, and then at the end, the not massive crash, but the incident between the championship rivals. You could
bit of
not
the top
ask.
10 moments meme there.
Yeah, exactly. With a top 10 moments meme, you could not ask for more spice in a race. As I'm gonna give it to X90 G now.
So I'm gonna start with my favorite my favorite race I've commentated on, and I'm torn between two, but I'm gonna go with the Austrian GT Sport race at the Red Bull Ring. There was constant battling, and it went from start to finish. We had a few incidents, which is obviously what some spectators like to watch. But obviously, as you heard from Joe, the last minute, in the race was just, I couldn't even get my words out towards the end. That's how much overtaking was happening.
You sounded like an auctioneer, didn't you, at that point at the end of the race?
And I'd say my favourite race that I've raced in, and I've got two that come to mind. The first one being the Austrian Grand Prix, obviously.
Where he won, of course.
Where I got my first race win in the freshman. That was a good moment. But I'd say something equally as fun was probably my first season with Gavra Racing. It was in Brazil, and it started as a dry race. I think I qualified about 5th or 4th. And then it started dry, and then it started raining. And I think I timed my strategy to perfection and actually gained about 2 or 3 positions just from staying out on dry tyres and pitting for the intermediates. And then it became a period where it was like a torn between intermediates and wets. And then staying out on the intermediates really gave me an advantage. And then battling for the final podium position with Damien, and I lost out by 0.07 seconds at the race. So it was really fun to battle for like maybe 15 laps constantly with someone. So I'd say that was probably my best race.
All right, there you go. There you have it, Woody. Hope you're happy with the answers that we just gave. As Napula, actually, we've kind of covered Napula's question there, but he asks, "What's the best Gavra racing race ever?" So you also covered that one. So I hope you both are happy with that. I also have a question for you, Napula. When you're coming back, mate, we need you back in the F1 stuff. I have to see more of your ridiculous strategy calls. Because they're just insane. Guy stayed out for about 20 laps on the mediums in France. I was like, what?
Jesus.
As Dan Schneider, Mr. Send It himself, from the Monaco 100% race, asks, what do you guys think about Gran Turismo 7? Well, we were all in a party together when the trailer came out, weren't we? For the PS5 thing.
Can I form a pretty quick opinion?
Yeah.
It looks the same as GT Sport.
Yeah. I think that's what we all came
pretty
down
much
to.
it.
I mean, I even put in the in one of those chats in the server, I was like, it's just Gran Turismo Sport with a few remastered tracks. But I think when it came out on the PS5 trailer, the constant, they did like 1.5 hours of game trailers and then showed us the box, which is a bit annoying.
And the box actually became a meme in about 2 seconds, so
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
Yeah, but I was quite disappointed with Gran Turismo 7. I wasn't expecting like a major overhaul. I think I was expecting a bit more than just remastered tracks from Gran Turismo 5 and a couple new cars. But what about you, Natty? What did you think of the Gran Turismo 7? What your first impressions?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, obviously it's hyped for a new game. It's kind of like the hype for a new F1 game. You wonder what they're gonna add to the addition of their current game, but I think it's going to be similar to GT Sport, but nevertheless, I'm still excited to see what new features they might have added.
I mean, we could be getting ahead of ourselves here. Like, that could have been just like the trailer, and then there could be a bunch of new stuff that they didn't show us. But why would they show us some stuff that literally looked the exact same as GT Sport? Like the cars we'd seen before in GT Sport. The thing that we've seen change, obviously, said to saying there's some tracks coming back from the old GT Sport games, but also there was a bit of a menu change in there as well. And that's the only two things we could see that were, that's the only two things I could see that had changed. But apart from that, but we'll have to see what happens when they start releasing more stuff. But from the trailer, it just looked like GT Sport, to be honest.
Yeah, as a final question from AB Techers here asks, how many front wings does Joe go through in a season? So I think we should have kept him in from the last.
We should have asked him that question.
So how many?
Probably on average, probably probably about one a race. But there's probably been one race where he's had like 2, or maybe he's ones where he's had like 3, and then a race where he's had none. But if you'd put it in an average, probably about 1 a race, maybe 1 or 2 a race.
I don't know about you, but I've seen the Mercedes mechanics constructing new front wings out of the broken ones.
As we said in the Monaco race, where there was people running out of tyres selection, so we said that they formed old tyres together to make new ones.
They just send the mechanics out on the track to pick up the discarded rubber from the street. as Matt from Wii Sports, unfortunately, X-Natty has refused to answer your question about toenails, but that made it sound way worse than it actually is.
I
But
did. You should have just left it.
Tiger says he's asked Tiger when do things start to get interesting.
Right, okay, so here's a meme. There's been a meme that's been made of me that every time in a commentary, I always say it's going to get interesting or it could become interesting or something where it involves the word interesting. Okay, but it's going to be interesting, all right? It's going to be interesting. I don't know what more words I can say. It's kind of the first word that comes to my head, really. But yeah, I've been made of a meme of, and someone made a video of literally me just saying interesting over and over and over again in different different commentaries. But yeah, it's been a bit of a meme for me. But it is going to be interesting. Gavra Racing's races are always a lot of fun and very, very interesting. So yeah, so on to your question there.
As Matt from Wii Sports has also asked me on a scale of 1 to 78, how much do I like grapes? I mean, 1 to 78 is a bit of a weird scale anyway, but I love grapes, like 80, because grapes are awesome.
Off the scale.
Off the scale, grapes are awesome. But yeah, that's going to bring to an end the Q&A section and episode 7 of the podcast. Much longer episode than we were anticipating. I think this one clocks at just over an hour and a half. But hopefully, hopefully you won't you enjoy this. There will be timestamps obviously in the description down below, so you can skip the sections that you don't want to listen to or the ones that you find boring. But thank you to everyone who's been listening. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the Gavra Racing channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. At time of recording, we're on 894, I believe it is at the moment. But yeah, when we get to close to 1,000, there'll be a special episode coming. So if you want to see that, subscribe. But also don't forget to go and join the Gavra Racing Discord. Follow the Instagram and the Twitter, all of which will be linked down below. And thank you everyone for listening to episode 7 of the Grid Slot.
Thank you.
See ya.